us a little bit more about the look that you encountered.
It's usually in places like the store, and it's just a norm. It's become just like second nature. And I noticed that when he walked in with his phone, he was kind of like showing them where he was going, and it was sort of like I always felt like you need to make the people who are going to travel behind you and watch you, I need to make you comfortable. You know, I try not to dig in my bag or look like I'm digging or putting something in. So it's like this whole thing just to go into the store and shop. And it's to the point where the can I help you is just like I'm waiting for it. And it's not can I help you to help you shop. It's can I help you? I have my eye on you.
Absolutely. Ashley, do you see any other comments that you would like for people to come off? Or if you are inclined and you want to share your thoughts or your feelings, y'all, feel free to come off from mute and share out. Because again, we want this to be an interactive, collective conversation amongst voices and viewpoints.
Right. So I think one thing I wanted to point about the video is that a lot of times we expect some sort of qualification, and you don't have to necessarily be a judge or a lawyer or a consultant or anything like that, a professional to, deserve respect when you walk out into life, And I think the video emphasizes it like, oh yes, like a Black person can be a judge or a Black person can be these professionals, but also, we also deserve respect whether we are, a teacher or, a non-professional, like working a blue collar job. So I think it's the video emphasizes the professionalism, but it also should go on to the point that, the look happens for people that aren't just professionals, and it should be something that we all deserve respect, not just because of our professions.
I was the only African American on the call. And the assumption is I'm not the expert in the room. I'm there for some other reason where I am the expert in the room. So that becomes frustrating that you have to always, I guess, re-emphasize yourself and re-emphasize the fact that I'm here because I bring this to the table. So you find, it's just what it is, unfortunately. And it's frequent for most of us that as professionals here, that we are the only Black person that these clients will see. And so some of the assumptions can be incorrect as to who we are when we're sitting at the table.
I first saw that video, I don't remember whether it was about a month or 6 weeks ago, I think I saw it on television, and it moved me the first time I saw it. It was just incredibly powerful. And I think what was so powerful about the way that particular video is presented is just even in the production, they actually put you in the person's shoes. You're seeing what he's seeing. And it just creates a different type of emotional response. And almost, you can sense why someone would be frustrated or sad. And then very powerful at the end to see that, he's actually overcome so much to get to the position that he was in.
I think you make a great point too, because even at the end, when we see where he has come, look at how much he still has to do in spite of that. And that kind of goes in and said, even once you make it to the room and you have a voice and you got that because you were qualified, you still have to keep proving yourself consciously and unconsciously to validate your positioning there. That we all have biases, and most often these biases are based on stereotypes rather than actual knowledge or the individual or circumstances. Whether positive or negative, such cognitive shortcuts can become the results of prejudgments and harsh decisions, and that's how we have discriminatory practices. Next. So this brings me to this question: what is unconscious bias? Everyone drop in the chat, what is this? We've heard this word, we've maybe seen it a couple times, some of us have experienced, but do we have a singular definition? So let me hear from y'all. Let's throw in the chat, what is unconscious bias? And if you have a brave soul, come off of mute if you feel like you have a great definition and share it out with us. As it's populating, Robert, I'm gonna nominate you to be that brave soul. Come off and tell us about defining people before giving a chance to discover who they are. Tell us about that.
Well, I think that too often we, based on previous experiences in life or what we've been told we're supposed to believe in certain things, we kind of categorize as a natural instinct to kind of protect ourselves And by doing that, we're placing definitions on people before we even give a chance for them to show us who they really are. I know one of mine is, and in fact, it's helped me being in this industry now to overcome it, is I have an issue growing up, economically struggling with my family. I have a preconceived notion about how people who have money act towards me. And I will put them into a category and have a serious issue with them generally off the bat. And I have to remind myself to step back and kind of let them be the people they are and define them based on the actions they show me and not something that I've experienced previous in my life.
Thank you. That was very insightful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And then let's get Felix before we drop what the definition is. Felix, can you come off? You said making judgments on people at first look. Elaborate on that and tell me what you thought.
Yeah, essentially, just, seeing how someone may look, whether it be their skin color, their hair, how they're dressed, and kind of coming up with an ingrained belief of how you think that person is, based on how they look. And kind of going back to what we were discussing before, I kind of have it, walking into high-end stores because I have a perception on what they believe I'm in there to do. They may think, okay, just a black guy coming in here, he's probably not going to buy anything. Or if he is buying something, it's probably with, illegal money or something like that. And I've experienced situations like that before, specifically in high-end stores on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan. So, yeah.
Thank you, Felix. Let's go ahead and put the definition up there. And so basically, when we make these implicit associations, like all of you have said, it operates beyond our control or our awareness. Sometimes we know, sometimes we don't. They're based on this mental model that we have that's driven from our life experiences, how we're culturally conditioned, what we've been around, and they inform our perception of a person or even a social group. And I think the biggest thing that we want people to walk away is that you have to start to be more conscious of them and how you operate in the room and even those around you. If you're with someone who is experiencing something, have you created a space where you can either acknowledge it, you can call it out, you can comfort that person, or you can have those conversations that allow you to say that this is real, this is not right, and let's try to work together to either get a solution or to be able to tolerate this until we can move on. So now that we understand let's kind of look into how it affects people. This following video is entitled How Microaggressions Are Like Mosquito Bites. During the video, you're gonna have a thinking job of how aware you are of microaggressions. But before we do that, I am from the South, right? So I love to go outside. I love to just be in nature, but I also hate to be bitten by mosquitoes. And in my house, I have been getting bitten by a mosquito that seems to be gravitating towards me, right? So it seems to be a lot of them. I always ask my husband, like, is he getting bitten? And he's looking at me kind of like, no, I'm not. And then he'll say something very, unattached to my emotions and say, well, hey, maybe you just have, it's your blood. Maybe you have sweet blood. And I'm thinking, that's not a compliment. I don't want to be bitten by a mosquito. So he says that, but he's unaware of how it's affected me, right? So I want you to think about microaggressions and why this analogy of the mosquito is really to the forefront. And then let's have a conversation afterwards. So let's play the video. Okay, so take a few minutes and put in the chat if you have ever experienced a microaggression, if you can relate to this video. And the great thing about it is it covers a wide spectrum of stuff. One way that I really love to start conversation is being vulnerable and sharing a personal story. So my son was born with bilateral club feet. And if you don't know what that is, it kind of sounds exactly what it is. So when he was born, his feet were turned all the way in. And we had to do this method called the Dennis Brown bar method, where we over-rotated his feet to about 180 degrees to try to get them to go in the middle, right? And so when I went through that, I had never really experienced a disability because, hey, I wasn't disabled. But when I had a child that had a disability, when I was going out into public and how people would say stuff like, what did you do to him? What's wrong with his feet? And they wouldn't compliment my child. They didn't even know me. There was no entryway to it. So when I think about a microaggression, it's kind of similar to that. And sometimes we think about intent versus the impact, and we have to be cognitive of that. So I share that story to open it up to try to say, well, when have you experienced a microaggression? And how can we be better stewards or citizens and be more, cognitive of what we say and how it comes out? So let's open this up and let's get some conversation going around microaggressions.
I have one. When I was a teenager, I was a punk rock kid, so my hair was different colors and all kinds of things. And I grew up, I'm a Florida boy, so I grew up in Florida near Palm Beach. And I drove in a 1985 Cutlass Sierra through Palm Beach at night, and I would get pulled over by the cops, and they would start to search my car. You know, not try to physically go in, but start shining the light in and looking for things. And I asked the cop, "What are you looking for?" He goes, "Well, drugs, alcohol." And I said, "Well, I'm actually drug-free and alcohol-free. I don't drink, I don't do drugs." And at that point, he was kind of taken back and started saying things like, "That doesn't, you know," almost like it doesn't fit your personality because of the way I looked. As well as asking me, you know, he asked me if it was a gang, all kinds of certain weird questions that I just was kind of like, it felt, you know, he was poking at me. And, you know, it certainly sat funny with me. It certainly did not make me feel very welcome to Palm Beach. And I basically, you know, I don't know. It was irritating. He was judging me on the way that because I had blue hair, you know, I'm thinking I was a drug addict, an alcoholic, and I certainly didn't belong in Palm Beach with a 1985 Cutlass Sierra in the 90s. So.
Well, that's a good segue, Robert, because in the chat, Felix also said yes from the police. So Felix, pick up on what he was saying and tell us about your personal experience and how you feel like that was a microaggression as well.
Yeah, so a couple years ago, we had a brief period at my house where like certain packages were getting stolen. So, you know, every day we'd like order something, whether it be Amazon or another website, and we would have our package stolen. We'd never receive it. So we installed some recordable cameras with a DVR so we can rewind and, you know, kind of see what happens during the day. And one day we actually caught the perpetrator on camera. We've seen this person in the neighborhood a couple times, so we knew who it was. And we went to the police station to file a police report. And then the next step was they were going to send police to our house so we can play back the video for them and file the formal complaint. And when they did come over, you know, I rewinded the tape and I was walking them through everything, showing them the different timestamps of when the package was delivered, the time the person entered the premises, and the time the person left with it. And the one officer kind of made up his face and he's like, "Wow, you're really articulate." And, you know, it kind of just rubbed me the wrong way because I was just like, you know, well, what did you expect? Did you expect me to have a different tone of voice? Did you expect me to just speak to you in slang terms the whole time? It was just basically like he had no idea like how old I was, you know, what my education level was or anything. But the fact that I seemed rather articulate to him definitely rubbed me the wrong way.
Thank you for sharing that. And then one last person, Audra, can you come off and mute? I don't think we've heard your voice so far. And tell us about what you put in the chat so we can hear from your experience.
Hey everyone, this is Audra. Yeah, although when it first happened, I would like laugh it off as a working consulting for my whole career. I would continually be mistaken over and over at the airport for a flight attendant when like around the airport. Even getting the discount offered to me at the Hudson News. And over time, I was kind of like, you know what, clearly that was based purely on my physical look and feel. And, you know, that's both a unconscious bias to flight attendants as much as it was to me. And over time, I really didn't appreciate it. You know, I'm a professional in my own right for my own job. And, you know, there's no reason to think that just because I'm at the airport and I look a certain way that I'm a flight attendant. That was a huge assumption for a really large public place that kept happening over and over for whatever reason.
Thank you for sharing. Next slide. So what I appreciate about everyone's story is that microaggressions don't feel good. And then I know y'all have heard that old slogan again that says the road to hell is paved with good intentions. We can have good intentions, but our words and our actions can have a negative effect that doesn't match our intent. So we have to be aware of that. And that's the first part about creating safe spaces and conversations where we're more inclusive in our conversation and we are cognitive of what we're doing to others and how it may make them feel.